Life can take everything from us in an instant. Sometimes we get so caught up in struggles that it feels like we've lost all hope and identity. In those moments, when everything seems lost, the only question that remains is, what now? Maria was just an ordinary girl, born into a small family. She woke up every day with a new sense of hope for her life. But one day her world was shaken in a way she never saw coming. Her dreams, her career, and those little moments of happiness she shared with her family, they all disappeared in the blink of an eye. One day her business, which had been thriving just months ago, went bankrupt. She didn't have enough money to pay rent, and slowly the support from her family started to fade away. Maria found herself thinking, should I just give up on my life now? And in the midst of that pain and uncertainty, a moment came that would change everything. It was the lowest point in Maria's life. Every day felt like a constant struggle just to stay afloat. The weight of failure was crushing her spirit, and she didn't know where to turn. All those years of hard work, every sacrifice she'd made, seemed meaningless now. But there was one thing Maria couldn't shake off. Her heart still had a faint pulse of hope. One rainy evening, when everything felt like it was closing in on her, Maria walked into a small cafe to escape the storm. Her coat was soaked, her thoughts were heavy, and her heart was tired. As she sat down at the counter, the old man behind the counter, who had seen many people come and go, noticed her silence. He asked, "What's weighing on you, dear?" Maria looked up at him, surprised. She hadn't expected anyone to notice. The weight of her life's problems felt too heavy to share, but something about his calm presence made her speak. "I lost everything. My business, my home, and most importantly, my belief in myself. I feel like I've failed, like I don't even know who I am anymore," she confessed, her voice trembling. The old man nodded thoughtfully, then simply said, "You know, sometimes losing everything is the best thing that can happen to you." Maria stared at him, confused. "What do you mean? How can losing everything be good?" The old man smiled gently, his eyes full of understanding. "Because when you lose everything, you have nothing left to lose. That's when you find your true strength. Sometimes it's the darkest moments that lead to the brightest changes." For the first time in days, Maria felt something stir within her. It wasn't a solution, but it was a glimmer of something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. She sat there for hours, reflecting on his words. Losing everything hadn't destroyed her. It had just stripped away the things she thought defined her. Now, she had the freedom to rebuild, not just her business, but her life. The next day, Maria woke up with a new mindset. She realized that sometimes all we need is to lose ourselves to truly find who we're meant to be. She didn't have a clear plan yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to give up. She started small. She reached out to old contacts, attended workshops, and read every motivational book she could find. She spent hours thinking about her purpose and how she could help others who had lost their way, just like her. 1 month later, Maria launched a new project, something completely different from her previous business. This time, it wasn't about chasing success. It was about creating something meaningful. It wasn't easy, but with every small victory, Maria realized that she was slowly rebuilding herself, piece by piece. Her journey wasn't just about financial success anymore. It was about rediscovering her own strength, her resilience, and the deep truth that the greatest transformations often come from the hardest struggles. As the days passed, Maria's journey wasn't smooth. She faced rejection after rejection, and the weight of her past mistakes constantly lurked in her mind. It felt like every step forward was followed by 2 steps back. Yet, Maria never gave up. There were moments when she wanted to quit, when the pain of failure felt overwhelming, but something deep within her kept pushing her to move forward. One day, as Maria sat at her desk in her tiny apartment, reviewing plans for her new business venture, an email came through. It was from a potential investor, a person she'd once met at a networking event but hadn't spoken to in months. The email was short, but it caught her eye. "We've been keeping an eye on your progress. I believe in what you're doing. Let's talk about how we can make this happen." Maria's heart raced. She had been working day and night, with little to show for it, and now this email felt like a beacon of hope. It was her chance, her moment, to prove that everything she had been through was worth it. She quickly responded, setting up a meeting. But even as she typed out the reply, doubt crept into her mind. Was she truly ready for this? Was she capable of handling such an opportunity? That evening, before the meeting, Maria took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. She remembered the old man's words. "When you lose everything, you have nothing left to lose." She had nothing to fear now, no failures to be ashamed of, no expectations to live up to. All she had was her passion, her purpose, and the willingness to keep going. The next day she walked into the investor's office with a quiet confidence. She had spent countless hours refining her pitch, learning everything she could about the industry and rehearsing her story. She was no longer the person who doubted herself at every turn. Maria knew who she was now, and she had a powerful message to share. The meeting went better than she could have imagined. The investor didn't just see potential in her business, he saw the fire within her, the same fire that had kept her going despite all the hardships. He wasn't just investing in a project, he was investing in Maria herself. The deal was sealed, and with that, everything started to change. But it wasn't just the financial backing that made the difference. What truly changed was Maria's belief in herself. She had gone from a woman who had lost everything to someone who was building a future from the very ashes of her past. It wasn't an easy journey, but the lessons she had learned along the way were priceless. She realized that every failure, every setback, every loss had been a necessary step in her transformation. The most painful moments had turned out to be the most enlightening ones. Each time she had fallen, she had learned how to rise stronger, more determined than before. Maria's business didn't just succeed, it flourished. She built something that was meaningful, something that resonated with people. But more importantly, she had built a life that was rooted in resilience, humility, and the unwavering belief that even when everything seems lost, it's only the beginning of something new. Maria's business quickly became a success. It wasn't the kind of success that came overnight, but the kind that lasted. Every day she poured herself into her work, but with a different mindset. She no longer saw failure as something to be feared, but as an opportunity to learn, grow, and adapt. She had learned that true success wasn't about avoiding mistakes, but about overcoming them with grace and perseverance. But beyond the financial stability and the accolades, something even more profound changed within Maria. She began to realize that her true calling wasn't just to run a successful business, it was to inspire others who were struggling just as she had. People came to her for advice, for mentorship, and for guidance. They saw her not as someone who had it all together, but as someone who had been to the very bottom and had come back stronger. And that, more than anything, resonated with them. Maria started hosting workshops, sharing her story, and connecting with people who needed to hear that it was possible to rebuild. She spoke about the emotional toll of failure, the feeling of being at rock bottom, and the long, hard road to recovery. She didn't sugarcoat her journey. She spoke about the sleepless nights, the crushing doubts, and the moments when she thought she wouldn't make it. But more importantly, she talked about what came after. She shared the power of self-belief, the importance of resilience, and how sometimes losing everything is the catalyst we need to rediscover our purpose. People connected with her honesty, her vulnerability, and her strength. They saw in her what they longed to see in themselves: hope. Maria also began to use her platform to give back. She started a scholarship fund, for young entrepreneurs who didn't have the financial means to pursue their dreams. She used her story to inspire change, to show others that no matter how dire the situation, there was always a way out. She was living proof that transformation wasn't just possible, it was inevitable for those who refused to give up. As Maria looked back on the long, winding journey that had brought her here, she couldn't help but smile. Every failure, every heartbreak, every moment of despair had led her to this place of purpose and fulfillment. It wasn't about the success she had built or the wealth she had gained. It was about the person she had become. She knew now that the greatest gift life had given her wasn't the money or the recognition. It was the lesson that even in our darkest moments, when everything feels lost, we have the power to choose our own destiny. We have the ability to rise again and again, no matter how many times we fall. And as she stood on stage at a conference, sharing her story with hundreds of people who were looking up to her, Maria realized that the journey she had taken wasn't just hers, it was everyone's. Her message was simple but powerful. No matter where you start, no matter how many times you fail, the choice is always yours to begin again. Maria had lost everything, but in doing so she had found something even more valuable, herself, and that she realized was the key to a life that would never again be defined by her losses, but by her ability to rise after every fall. This story ends with a message of hope and resilience, leaving the audience with the understanding that the worst moments in life can sometimes lead to the most profound transformations. Life isn't about avoiding hardship, it's about how we rise from it